The Preds take on the LA Kings tonight on the West Coast. What are the keys for the Predators to win that game? Plus, we have first half grades for the Preds top line of Filip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gustav Nyquist. What have they done well? What do they need to do better? We'll talk about it today on the Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys, and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at The Hockey News.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com and use Locked On to get $20 off your order. On today's show, we will continue first half grades from the season. Today, we will look at Filip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gustav Nyquist, the Preds top line, clearly carrying this team right now.
Yeah.
We'll look at how they've carried this team and also maybe some things that they can do better in the second half of the season. First, though, let's get to tonight's game between the Predators and LA Kings, a 9 o'clock central puck drop out there on the West Coast. This is an interesting matchup, Ann, because for months and months and months, we've been talking about the LA Kings being one of the best teams in the NHL. We've talked about them kind of being the standard, maybe surprising. A lot of people were kind of even whispering after the first month or so in the year. It's like, is this a cup contender right here? And now here we enter tonight's game. The Nashville Predators have, on average played pretty well over the last little bit. The LA Kings, meanwhile, have just one win in their last 10 games. And all of a sudden, Ann, entering tonight's game, we could see a scenario in which the Predators pass the LA Kings in the standings, points-wise.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit surprising because I'm with you. I think at the beginning of the season, as you watch the LA Kings, I don't know that anybody preseason was predicting them to be quite as good as they were. I think kind of expectations for Cam Talbot in net were, hey, he's 36 years old, but he's not dead yet. That's kind of the level at which I think people thought Cam Talbot was going to execute his game. He's been very good. He's been good enough for the LA Kings, and they've definitely had some players take some steps forward for them. And of course, the usual suspects are having good seasons. But it's interesting that the Predators are meeting up with the Kings when the Kings are kind of on this little bit of a skid because, which LA Kings team are we going to see? And can the Nashville Predators capitalize on this game at this time with the standings the way they are? This is kind of a big game for Nashville.
Yeah. The Kings are an interesting bird here, Ann, because, we've talked about their issues here in their last 10. And it's interesting because you look at the roster and there's some good stuff going on. Anze Kopitar is leading the team in points again, 39, even though that's not necessarily a high number. You look and I think the team defense has been pretty good this year. But the biggest reason for both their success and the reason that they're sliding lately has been goaltending.
Yeah.
And, Cam Talbot was realistically, I would say maybe a Vezina front runner when this season started.
Yeah.
And, you look and he does not have a win since December 23, has allowed 4 or more goals in 3 of his last 4 starts, or 3 of his last 5 starts, I should say, including 2 games with 5. And there's been some performances like that Florida game in which he, kind of got left out to dry, faced
True.
41 shots. But, you also have performances where he's letting in, 5 goals on 27 shots, like the other night against the Detroit Red Wings. So the goaltending has kind of cooled off, and you're seeing that X factor for why the Kings were so hot to begin the season not quite there anymore. And I have to ask, if you're the Nashville Predators, who very quietly, despite all their chaos, have averaged about, 30, 35 shots a game. They've even gotten close to 40 in these past couple of games. Is this a game in which, if you're Andrew Brunette, you're just saying, okay, let's just put what we have on net and just, swarm and see if they can handle it?
Yeah, I think this game should look very different than the game against the New York Islanders, where I feel like the Nashville Predators were really playing a very patient game of hockey chess. I agree with you. When you've got, Cam Talbot kind of struggling, they also don't have Phoenix Copley, who is out. He had ACL surgery. He's out for the season. Their backup, who we love, let's be clear, we love us a little David Riddick, but I'm not saying, I don't think he is necessarily the backup who is going to steal you a bunch of games if you're the LA Kings. So, this is really going to be a game where I expect we'll see Cam Talbot in net. He was in net against Dallas. They lost to Dallas on Tuesday, 5-1. But I expect we'll see Cam Talbot in net. Could be David Riddick. I don't know. But regardless of who it is, this is a game that should look different than the Islanders game, in that you have got to put pucks on net. You've got to put pucks on net, and you've got to have guys fight to get to what Andrew Brunette calls the good ice for things like rebounds. Talbot has let in a lot. He's let a lot of rebounds go that have ended up in the back of the net. And this is exactly what the Nashville Predators need to do tonight. It's pucks on net, baby. We need to see 35 shots on goal.
Yeah. Here's an interesting question for you, Anne. You look at Pierre-Luc Dubois. That was sort of the big headline.
Yeah.
Grabbing trade this season. Pierre-Luc Dubois has not been good this season.
No.
Kind of teetering between just not good and actively kind of bad.
Yeah.
You look at what the Winnipeg Jets are doing this year, and some of those depth guys that they sent the other way. Like, you look at Gabe Velarde, who, got hurt, but had, 20 points in 25 games that he's played this season. You look at Alex Iafallo, who has almost the same point total as Dubois in LA does, and he's like a third, fourth line guy.
Right.
Do you regret this trade so far if you're the LA Kings?
Let me tell you, I like Pierre-Luc Dubois as a player. I think this is probably one of the worst deals that went down. And you just based solely on who got what. If you're the LA Kings, you're hoping that this turns around pretty quick. But this is one of the deals in the NHL that went down, and you're going, this is not at all how we expected this to go. If you're the LA Kings, he really has not been himself on this team. And it's something, the LA Kings have been successful, I think, despite that. But he's a piece where you've got to add him. You've got to get the value added to him if you want to make a postseason run. And I'm just not sure they've seen much of that at all this season from Dubois. So this was potentially one of the worst deals short term so far in the NHL. Ouch, man. Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe Pierre-Luc Dubois gets better. I don't know. I was one of the people that even before that deal went through, I'm like, are we overvaluing Dubois a little bit? Like, has he really shown that much in LA. Or did he even show that much in Winnipeg that we're
Right.
like, oh, we gotta climb over top to get this guy. Like we gotta sell out, and he's kind of our central piece. I wasn't on that bandwagon to begin with, and it's not
looking
doing
like
anything to change the mind.
yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, there are going to be a couple familiar faces for Nashville Predators fans. Of course, this is where Kevin Fiala is. He's the third leading point scorer on the team. We were talking about this before the game. No Victor Arvidsson jump screens tonight. He is out with a back injury, but just file it away in the back of your mind. There is a chance that we could see famed Nashville Predators forward Sam Fagemo in tonight's game for the LA Kings. They picked him up off of waivers, and they've recalled him from the Ontario Reign, where he has absolutely been on a tear in the AHL. I think he's played like 20 games and maybe is the top scorer in the AHL right now. So anyway, just a couple familiar faces we may see in the opposing black tonight, or silver. I don't know what they're wearing.
Yeah.
I don't know what
their jersey, like
their jerseys.
I don't know. It's whatever the Kings plan on wearing tonight. A combination of black and silver.
There you go.
9:00 Central Puck drop. So we'll be up late for that. And then we'll come back with recap tomorrow. A big factor in this game, Ann, is going to be the top line. I would say for the Nashville Predators, Filip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gustav Nyquist. We'll take a closer look at their game in the first half of the season coming up here on the Locked On Predators podcast. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. I'm glad you guys are here talking hockey with us. I don't know if you're about, I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I like to use sports as sort of an escape from reality. After a long day of work or, tough times, sometimes I like to just put on a hockey game and cool down. But that doesn't give us the ability to just sort of ignore real life. And according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. That's why I trust Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, UTIs, and many other things that can happen to literally any one of us. Visit jacemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medication will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. You'll have those antibiotics with you at all times. You can just keep them in the house if you're concerned about supply chain shortages. You can take them with you if you're traveling. That way you don't get caught abroad or away from your home and unable to get life-saving antibiotics. This is investing in a good peace of mind for you and your family. And it's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 order. Again, offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off at Jace Medical. All right, and we are looking at the Nashville Predators top line today, putting them under the microscope a little bit. We have Filip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gustav Nyquist. I would say it's the single biggest 3 reasons to the Nashville Predators' success this season. And Filip Forsberg, we know what he's doing right now. 48 points this season, leads the team. 22 goals, that leads the team. Second behind Roman Josi, assists in 26. Is on pace for his career best season, even better than an 84-point season he had a couple of years ago. Ryan O'Reilly is on pace for his best scoring season since 2019, which is when the Blues won the Cup and he won the Selke. And Gustav Nyquist, who I think safe to say, and was sort of the forgotten signing of the offseason. I think a lot of people's reactions were just, oh yeah, Ghost Nyquist still sort of in the league, on pace for his best statistical season since 2015. So you have a lot of, I think, exceeding expectations here on the Nashville Predators top line. What do you see out of the man?
When you look at this top line, I think you're looking at one of the better top lines, I think, in the Western Conference. When you're looking at playoff teams, when you're looking at teams that the Nashville Predators are competing with for a spot in the playoffs, I think you have to look at the Nyquist, O'Reilly, Forsberg line as one of the best, one of the most productive lines. That's a blessing and a curse for the Nashville Predators for a couple of reasons. Individually, like you said, I mean, these guys are each having some of their best seasons. And I think it's a little bit surprising when you look at somebody, Gus Nyquist is 34 years old. The Nashville Predators signed him. He was injured at the end of last year. He was traded at the trade deadline, just played 3 games for the Minnesota Wild coming off of an injury. So I don't know that we really had super high expectations for a player like Gus Nyquist, but I think he has been a delightful signing for the Nashville Predators. One of the words that Andrew Brunette consistently uses when he talks about Gus Nyquist is he talks about him being a very cerebral player, somebody who thinks the game at a really high level. The thing that is interesting to me about Gustav Nyquist is that I don't think this season has been the season that they anticipated for him, not necessarily production wise, but I think role wise, because it seemed the role for Nyquist was going to be, hey, you are going to be the guy that gets Cody Glass into top 6 shape, top 6 form. You're going to help him find his game. And I think we all know that this has not been that season for Cody Glass, but where Nyquist has landed has just really opened up his game, and his production offensively has been amazing.
Yeah. For Nyquist, to me, the one thing I'm really impressed with was his two-way game. And that's kind of what stood out to me this year. Look, I make no secret about my, Detroit Red Wings roots. I watched a lot of Nyquist when he was on the Red Wings. This man was speed, and then either make a good pass or make a shot, that it would either miss 20 feet wide or go right in the top corner and no in between.
Yeah.
Defense wasn't his game. I think there was a lot of people, even when the signing happened, a lot of the advanced analytics people put out a lot of charts. It was this guy is speed and nothing else, and a big old issue on defense. And so imagine my surprise when it's middle of season and I start seeing him on the top penalty killing unit for the Nashville Predators. And I go, what the hell is this? What are they doing right now? But he's owned it, and you've seen him, use his skill, I think, on the penalty kill, which is kind of a big thing. We talked about, maybe not necessarily, a kind of a trend across the NHL teams, not necessarily playing like their most obvious defensive forwards, the big, Michael McCarron sort of type guys, and maybe opting more towards, using some speed, using some of your skill guys to go out there and, win puck battles and, maybe try to keep possession rather than just sort of, skating back and forth and getting into lanes and blocking shots and everything like that. And I think that's been maybe the most eye-opening thing about Nyquist's game this season is his use as kind of the possession gaining, sort of two-way forward, as opposed to what we thought we were going to get when he came in the season, which is just sort of a go.
Right.
Sort of, I guess, a wide receiver of the Nashville Predators. If you're comparing it to the football team, just a guy that just runs the 4-2 40, runs the 40-yard routes downfield and, doesn't block, doesn't do anything else, just turns on the jets. And, surprisingly, that's not been his game this year. It's been very well rounded.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like that we're seeing kind of continue to develop with Nyquist, you talk about special teams, that top power play unit. While the success rate has not been what we need it to be from that top power play unit, one of the things that I really like is that when Gus Nyquist brings the puck into the zone on the power play in that top unit, he's going to get it in there. Like, I think that's one of those little tiny skills that has made a really big difference for Nashville as far as getting zone time on the power play. Now, are they capitalizing on the power play like they need to? No. Tonight's game against the LA Kings is going to be very difficult. LA has they have the best ranked penalty kill in the league currently. So it's going to be a challenge. But I think when you have somebody like Gus Nyquist, who has speed, but who also can handle the puck well, who kind of sees the game unfolding quickly, that's somebody who's really helping the power play unit get set up. Now, we just need them to finish. For the love of all that's holy, finished.
Let's talk about Ryan O'Reilly just a little bit here, Ann, and then we'll talk about Filip Forsberg as well. For Ryan O'Reilly, for me, it was everything that was as advertised when Barry Trotz signed him. It was like, look, he's going to be the culture guy. He's going to be sort of the lead by example guy. If you watch him, we're bringing him in this locker room because, hey, you young players that are in this locker room, we want you to watch what he does. And then we want you to sort of, I guess, embody that or sort of duplicate that. We want you to kind of just pick up on his routines and maybe it'll rub off on you yourself. And I think it's, you can do that with any player. Like, you can take just a veteran player around the NHL and be like, this guy has a lot of good accolades to his name. Watch what he does. Watch how he prepares. But I think it's more impactful to do that when the player you're emulating has as successful as a season as Ryan O'Reilly did. He's coming in here. He's second on the team in points right now.
Yep.
He's having his best statistical season or on pace for it in years. And I think that is more impactful because it's almost like, and we talked about this when the Preds started winning games in that Andrew Brunette possession-based style. It's like you can preach something as much as you want, but when you see those results come from what the coach is telling you to do and telling you to kind of believe in and reshape your philosophy, that's when it clicks. And I think watching what Ryan O'Reilly has done this year, his work ethic, the way he prepares, the way he plays the game, that's going to click for a lot of the young Nashville Predators on this team.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing that right now with somebody like Luke Evangelista. Ryan O'Reilly reached, the term that Barry Trotz used was serial winner. And I'm like, yes, he won a cup, he won a Selke, he's a really great player. But he has changed the way the young players prepare for the game. Luke Evangelista became the guy who competed with Ryan O'Reilly for last off the ice. And I think you are seeing the payoff right now for a young player like Luke Evangelista. Phil Tomasino, the same thing, putting in the work like Ryan O'Reilly puts in the work. And I don't think he does it with words. I think he just goes about his business in a way that shows these young players, this is what you have to do to win. You can't cut the corners. And so I do think you are already seeing the benefit of having his voice, his experience, his example in this locker room. And on top of the fact that when he's on the ice, there's not an area of the game he doesn't affect. He is a penalty killer. He plays on the top power play unit. He's terrific at 5-on-5. I think his defensive game is incredible. There is rarely a game that I watch where there isn't a moment where I think, damn, Ryan O'Reilly, you are exceptionally good. And I know he's 32 years old and people kind of are like, hey, why are we getting these older veterans? This is exactly why you sign these older veterans. He is exactly as advertised.
Yeah, I agree. One more take on Ryan O'Reilly, and then we'll talk about Filip Forsberg and maybe his expectations for the second half of the year coming up in just 1 second.
First, I want to let you know this episode's brought to you by our great friends at Indeed. We are all driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform. They have over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. And Indeed Indeed doesn't just do the work fast. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. So join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. Listeners of our show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at indeed.com/lockedon. Again, just go to indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Again, check out indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, you need Indeed.
And one last question about Ryan O'Reilly. We talked about his philosophy. We talked about the way he prepares. What do you see from him on the ice that maybe has contributed most to his success this year?
I really think he is that high level thinker. I think he sees the game in Filip Forsberg's speed. I think he sees the game in Gustav Nyquist's speed. I also think he is able to make adjustments to what he sees on the ice as it's happening. So if you put Ryan O'Reilly out there with a Luke Evangelista, if you put Ryan O'Reilly out there with a Phil Tomasino or a younger player, he knows how to make the adjustments on the fly for what is happening on the ice in real time in front of him. And I really think that is a unique talent that he has. So for me, I think he just reads the ice well and adjusts so immediately to what's happening in front of him. And you can see it on things like the penalty kill. You can see it on things like the power play. He just makes those mental adjustments so flawlessly.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he's a guy that's just, I think when you talk about hockey awareness, he is sort of the template.
Yes.
For that. Just so good at knowing not where, his players are going to be, but where other players are going to be. It's like he's like the kid genius who can see the chess pieces animating before he even lifts up his first piece.
He's the Doogie Howser of the Nashville Predators.
It's too young to know what that means.
Okay, never mind.
I know there's a Neil Patrick Harris reference.
There is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the Sheldon.
Yeah. I don't watch that show either.
Okay, never mind. He's really smart, y'all.
There we go. He's Christian Hulbicki from Survivor.
Don't watch that.
Okay, we'll find a show.
We'll find it.
Both watch and then go from there. Let's talk about Filip Forsberg.
Let's talk about him.
We talk about him every week just because he's sort of, the best player on the Nashville Predators this season. On pace for 85 points right now, which would top his career high that he set 2 years ago. He is on pace for, I think, 43 goals at the moment, if I'm doing math right. So that would put him, at his career high as well. Yeah. So the question for you, Ann, is this Filip Forsberg and Andrew Brunette's system? Is this what we're going to have? Or is it going to be a case of the same old Forsberg at the end of this year where injuries kick in and consistencies kick in and, peters out at 60, 70 points?
No, I think that this change in coaching, I think this change in style of play does nothing but benefit Filip Forsberg for a couple of reasons. First of all, it obviously taps into the style of play that he is best at. He is a fast player. He's a very smart offensive player. The other thing about Filip Forsberg that always surprises me, and I don't know why I'm consistently surprised by it, but he is deceptively strong with the puck. He is deceptively physical. Here is where I think the difference is going to be down the stretch this season for Filip Forsberg. I think this style of play takes a lot of the wear and tear off of Forsberg. Even though he can play a strong physical game, there isn't just constant forechecking that I think led to a lot of his injuries down the stretch. And I think when you play a more open game, you play a more north-south, speed-focused, offensively minded puck possession game, you eliminate some of that wear and tear that I think has really cost Filip Forsberg down the stretch when it comes to injuries. So for me, I think what we're seeing now is we're seeing the best of Filip Forsberg, but I don't think it's the exception. I think this is who he is. I think this is what we can expect from Forsberg. I think we're going to see a healthier player long term. I think we're going to see a guy who is going to be extremely offensively productive. And I think we're going to see his best seasons ahead of him because of Andrew Brunette's style of play.
Yeah. And he's 29 years old, which means realistically, he's still got a few seasons of his prime left in the tank. So if this is, sort of the standard for Forsberg for the next couple of years,
I'm loving it.
The Preds have a piece.
I'm loving it.
The Preds have a piece. They definitely need more, but I think if anything, so let's flesh back to, the off season when Barry Trotz said, hey, there's three people I want to build around: Filip Forsberg, Roman Josi, and UC Saros. And I think the question from a lot of people around the league, not necessarily in Nashville, but around the league, was, is that enough? Is that really a winning core? And I think if you see somebody like Forsberg, I think the Predators need some help still. But if Filip Forsberg's doing this every year, all of a sudden you do have a legitimate top line threat to build around. And once you get him, a hot young playmaker, once you get him some scoring depth behind him, so teams just can't load up on the top line. Right. This is, I would say, a big thing for the Predators' future. And again, he's 29. Realistically, he's going to have a few more years left in his prime. And if the Preds can kind of figure some things out quickly, they're all of a sudden a more dangerous team than maybe you'd expect them to be, 3-4 years down the line.
Yeah. And I think with all three of these top line players, I think the thing that the Nashville Predators really need to see in the future is they need to see some of these young players who are able to come up and play with a Filip Forsberg, play with a Ryan O'Reilly, then give a Ryan O'Reilly or a Gus Nyquist a younger player to help skate on a line with and help develop, because I think ideally that is how you're going to get some depth developing. These three guys can't carry the team. They're doing a hell of a job right now, but eventually they need to be able to help develop some of these younger players as well. That's a huge role for all three of them.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see if all three of them can make an impact tonight against the LA Kings. Again, 9:00 Central puck drop. We'll have a full recap of that game tomorrow on the show. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Back with an all-new episode tomorrow. We'll see you then.